today we're going to give you about a 45-minute overview of what's in this version, which is 5.5 of Storyboard Pro. And as a storyboard artist, as an animator, we're really looking to know from you guys what you think about this release. So if you want, you can always email us at webinars@toonboom.com. You can always post in our forums as well. And when you do so, please be sure to understand that we will get back to you as soon as possible. We really value your feedback, and we really want your expertise about this release. So without any further delay, Marc-André is going to jump into it, but always feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar. You can type them in, or you can email us at webinars@toonboom.com. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Desi, for the great introduction as well. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today for this live presentation of what's new in Storyboard Pro 5.5. So Storyboard Pro 5.5 is built on what Storyboard Pro 5 and Storyboard Pro 5.1 were. We've added a couple of new functionalities to make the creation and the drawing aspect of storyboarding faster. We've also improved the editing capabilities. We've improved the export and the pipeline integration with third-party software. So let me start Storyboard Pro here. So if you look at the welcome screen, you'll see it's pretty much the same as it was. And if I go and open the main interface, you'll notice the same thing. One thing that you cannot see through the webinar here is that the interface now supports Retina and high DPI display. So all the interface buttons, the text labels, everything is crystal clear. So although we had to modify the interface to support these new types of displays, we've really worked hard to make sure that the interface would stay the same as it was in the previous version, so that you feel right at home using the tools that you know and you rely on when upgrading to this new version of the software. Of course, we've added some new tools and functionalities, and we've integrated them in a way that makes the transition from version 5.1 to 5.5 as seamless as possible. So the first tool I want to show you are the perspective guides, or the guides and the perspective, the vanishing points. So for that, I'll need to have a guides view in my layout. So I've previously added a guide view to my layout. And from this guides view, I can add some different types of guides that will assist me when I'm drawing. So I have the square grid guide that will allow me to draw square straight lines on the horizontal, on the vertical. I can change the angle of this guide to really have the angle that I want. This is not the only guide that I have. I have a 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, so I can just add as many guides that I want inside the same panel. And you'll notice that when I have multiple guides, whichever guide I select, it's the only one that I will be seeing and that will be used to edit when I'm doing my drawing. So we've added those guides mostly for the vanishing points. So it makes it a lot easier to draw backgrounds and layouts inside Storyboard Pro. For example, I'm not very good at drawing myself, but it makes it very easy for me to draw let's say a 3-point perspective from a bird's eye view. So I've selected the 3-point perspective here. I see I have some points, some vanishing points, and I have some lines. These are kind of guidelines that show me the direction of these vanishing points. I'll disable these guides because it's sometimes very confusing to see all of those, and I'll just see that around my mouse I have 3 axes. These 3 axes, they point to the 3 vanishing points that I have inside my view. So now I'm able to quickly draw. Let's say I want to draw a city block from a bird's eye view like this. Makes it very easy. So I'm drawing a sidewalk right here to draw that. So my brush strokes, they snap to the angle. They snap to these 3 axes. Like this, and it makes it really easy to draw a building. Maybe I made my building a little bit big, like this. Makes it really easy to draw a building, and I'll just cut those lines using my cutter tool. There we go. Go back to my brush tool. And you see that when I draw, I have these big lines that show me the direction of the vanishing points, but they're also very useful to see how long should I draw my line so I don't go farther than what I should be doing. This. So even somebody like me that is not that good at drawing can really draw in perspective. Makes it really easy. It almost feels like cheating when I'm using those tools. There we go. This is how you can draw a block in using the the 3-point perspective. So I have a couple of options in my guides view. Of course, I showed you the ability to see all the guidelines to help you visualize the perspective. You also have the ability to just disable the guide, so I can draw in any direction that I want. Snap or not using the brush tool, snap or not using the eraser tool. But the one that's really the most important is probably the lock guide. So if you lock the guides, this prevents you from modifying them. Because when I add the guides, these are kind of templates that we have created inside the software. So when I add the 3-point perspective for bird's eye view, I can actually move really easily these points to the position that I want to. And once I have them in position, I can just lock them so that I'm sure that I'm not accidentally moving them while I'm drawing. And remember that all of these operations, all of these modifications that you do to your guides are saved in your project, and they're also undoable. So if you accidentally move a guide and move a vanishing point, don't worry, you can just undo and they will go back to their original position. And here you can see a couple of examples of a one vanishing point perspective drawing, just a small room, 2 vanishing points perspective, and a 3 vanishing point perspective drawing that was created from a worm's eye view instead of a bird's eye view. So this really is a great tool to help you create your layouts and your backgrounds faster. The next one that I'm going to show you, I'm going to go and open another project here. So we've added some new types of blurs inside the software, directional blurs and radial blurs. So the directional blur can be used, or like kind of a motion blur can be used to convey motion inside your storyboard. So for example, I've got this train here that is zooming by, but it's a really sharp drawing. I don't have any blurs on that. I want to kind of convey motion in the with the train. And traditionally, how I would do that, I would need to draw it in Storyboard Pro, export it, apply the blur in another software, and then import back the drawing inside Storyboard Pro. But now I can actually do the directional blur directly here. And I can do that on multiple panels and multiple layers at once. So I'll do that on those 3 panels. I'll press and hold the Command and the Shift key to select the T layer on those 3 panels. I'll go in my layer menu and select the Apply effect on bitmap layer. Here I want to do a directional blur. So the directional blur has a couple of parameters. The length, so the length of the trail that you want to create for the blur. The width, if you want to blur a little bit on the other axis at the same time. The angle, so the direction. Here I'm trying to go in the same direction as the tracks, so 185 degrees. If you want your blur to be bidirectional, and what type of fall off do you want? Do you want a hard fall off or a smooth fall off? So this is the fall off rate. And when I click OK, this will render the images with the blur effect. So now I can see that my train is going very fast because I can now see the motion inside the drawings. You have to remember, like all other types of blurs that we have in the software, the blurs can only be applied to bitmap layers. What I usually do, for example, in here I have a layer that's in vector, and I cannot apply this to my vector layer, but I do a duplicate of my drawing, and I convert that drawing to a bitmap drawing layer, and then I apply the effect. In this case, the effect that I want to apply is kind of a zoom blur. So the camera is zooming in very fast, and I want that to be visible when I'm looking at the images without having the animatic rendered. So I'll select the layer. I'll go in the layer menu, select the radial zoom blur. And in here I have a couple of options. So I've got the focus point. So where is the center of the blur in my drawing? And I'm using the field values. So when I'm moving my mouse, I'll show you that once I close this dialog. I can see the values, and I just use those values here. The amount of blur I want, and then the type of blur. Do I want to have a zoom in or zoom out type of blur? Do I want to have a spin blur? So these are the different types of blurs you can create with that tool. In my case, I just want to have a kind of a zoom out effect. So I click OK. It will render the effect inside my layer. So this really modifies the drawings. So this is why I do a copy of my layer first. I duplicate my layer before applying the effect so that I don't lose the original artwork if I need to go back to it. So now you can see that this blurred the layer as if I was zooming in really quickly on my layer. So it really conveys the motion of the camera here. And so the value I was saying, if you look in the bottom right here, when I'm moving my mouse, I see what is the coordinates, the field coordinates of my pointer. So this was the center of my blur. So I use the values here, minus 0.85 and, well, close to -4 as the center of the blur that I wanted to apply here. So this really helps to convey motion and it adds depth to your storyboard. The next one I want to show you is the ability to opaque drawings automatically inside Storyboard Pro. So when you're drawing and sketching inside Storyboard Pro, you're doing a lot of lines, you're doing your line work, and at some point the lines from the background and the lines from the character, they kind of get mixed up together, and it's difficult to see the difference, to make out the character from the background. And traditionally, what you would do is you would take your brush tool and you would fill in your characters to hide the background, or some people will go and actually erase the lines on the background, which is even a lot more work. But what I want to do is I want to automatically fill those drawings. So I'll select the 3 panels, again, with Command-Shift or Control-Shift on Windows, making sure I have the B layer selected. This will select the B layer on all the panels. I go in the layer menu again, and I select the generate auto matte. So this command will generate a matte, the shape of the character. I can select what's the radius of the brush that will be used to create the matte. What's the color I want to have for the matte? I'll just put it white for now. And if I want to copy the strokes to the destination. So what the auto matte does is it creates a new layer that has the same name with the underscore matte added to it, and it creates the matte on that layer. And you have the ability to copy also the original strokes on it. So this makes it easier if you want to modify in some specific zone with specific colors afterwards. I just click OK. And right there, you can see that these 3 drawings are now filled in. So I don't have any more confusion between the character and the background. And I don't have to do this manually for every drawing. It's really automatic. So you really can concentrate on what you're doing best, drawing inside the software, and the color fill can be done automatically by this command. Another small features we've added in the software here is the ability to have a safe area mask. We already have the ability to have a safe area dotted line, but sometimes when you're drawing that has a lot of line, it's kind of difficult to make out the difference between the lines in your drawing and the safe area mask or the safe area lines. So if you press and hold the safe area button here, it opens a little menu where you can select between safe area and safe area mask. And the safe area mask here is now a mask with some color and opacity, and it makes it a lot easier to see, and you don't get any confusion anymore with the rest of your drawing. Now, while I'm speaking about drawing tools, one thing that we've done is we've also made it possible to draw with very big brush. So in the past, the brush size was limited to 500, but now you can go all the way to 1600. And that was asked by a lot of people because sometimes what they want to do, they would just want to create a background layer and want to fill that layer with a color very quickly. So having a big brush really helps in doing that a lot faster than it was in the past. So that's a bit big. I'll go back to a smaller brush now. So another of the drawing tools that we've made a modification to or that we've improved is the perspective tool. The perspective tool can be used to add perspective to a flat drawing. So I'll take this here. But in the past, it only worked on vector drawing. It didn't work on imported images or on drawings with textures in them. But now I can actually use that on any type of drawings that I've created. So if you're importing an image to use on a sign or a poster on a wall, you can now use the perspective tool with that drawing. And another improvement we've done to that tool is that it's actually adding real perspective now. So in the past, it was not really adding perspective, it was kind of just squishing your drawing. And to be able to show you that better, I'll go inside the previous version of the software, where I'll import the same drawing right here. And I'll take my perspective tool and I'll add perspective to my drawing. And you see that when I squish the drawing, or when I try to add perspective to drawing, this is the old version, all the rectangles, they stayed the same size. I'm supposed to be adding perspective, so these drawings should be becoming smaller, but they're not. I'm really just squishing the drawing. And you also notice that the X and the plus, they don't match together anymore. So if I go to the new version now, I select this, I squish that, you see that it's really adding perspective. So it's really like I'm rotating this drawing on the 3D space. So I have the rectangles that are bigger and getting smaller, and my cross meets my X in the drawing. So it's really adding perspective to your flat drawings now. And the next one on the list here is the ability to flip the drawings in the scene, but not just the drawing, but also all the camera. So for example, I have this scene here where I have the character going from the left bank of the river and whizzing by to the right bank. If I show you this in the stage view, this is what this looks like. And then I'm really happy with what I've drawn and the action, it's really, really good. But then my director comes and tells me, you know, it's supposed to be coming in from the right side of the river, not from the left side. And then I think, oh no, I need to have to redraw the whole thing and redo my camera work. Not anymore. So now we have under Storyboard a command called flip selected scenes. And if I use this, this command on a scene, it will flip all the drawings in the scene, but also it will flip the camera. So I don't have to do that by hand, one panel at a time, and reframe the whole camera. So now the character is coming in from the right and jumping onto the left side of the river. So it really makes it a lot faster. So it doesn't, it removes some extraneous little tasks that you need to do when you're doing or revising a storyboard. I've been talking for about 20 minutes now. Desi, how's the how are things going, and any questions so far have been popping up?
Yeah, so we do have a few questions. We also have a few friends that are shouting out and saying hi. So Pascal is saying hi, so is Mathieu.
Hey guys.
And those are all your buddies. So we're just going to jump into one or two questions. Will Storyboard Pro ever include video importing feature? Chris would like to know.
This is not yet in this version. For sure, this is something that I think would be very, very helpful inside Storyboard Pro. This is something we have on our list, on our bucket somewhere, and yeah, something we would like to have in the future, but I cannot promise when we will be doing that.
Just to answer one question for everybody who's listening, yes, this webinar is being recorded and it will be online in a few days. So give us about a day or two to render the file and have it online at Toon Boom /webinars. And you'll be able to re-listen to this and be able to ask us more questions via email once you've watched the webinar at your own pace. So we'll have time, I guess, for one more question before you jump back in.
Sure.
Okay, let's see. So let's go to, oh, there's lots of questions. The generate matte feature only works on vector layers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so
that was an easy one.
Let's get back into it and we'll come back to questions later.
All right, so that's pretty much it for all the drawing tools inside the software that we've improved or added the functionality to really improve your creative workflow inside the software. Now let's jump to the exporting part of the software. And let's start by showing you the expand render area. So traditionally, if I render this scene, so this scene is a very big scene. It has a big camera move going from left to right. And if I render this to a bitmap sequence right here, like that, what it will do, it will take the framing of each panel, the camera frame of each panel, and render only that specific area in each of the images. So then if I take these and I want to create the layout or the background inside another software, if I want to work on the animatic outside of Storyboard Pro, I'm kind of stuck with that frame and I cannot go beyond that. So the new functionality that we have, so I'll just rename these files here, is called expand render area to scene camera. And what that will do, it will take the camera motion for the whole scene, the whole duration of the scene. And when it's going to render each panel of the scene, it will take that full area for every panel. So then if you need to modify your camera movement in your editing software after exporting out of Storyboard Pro, you have the ability to do that because you have the whole background from the whole scene. So now I have, even though my camera only framed this area, the whole background was rendered because it rendered the whole camera motion in all the panels of that scene. Now in the export, we also have another thing that's new. If I go to scene number 10, sometimes when you render and you're rendering bitmap, you want to use those bitmaps to pitch your storyboard. The thing is that you also want to be able to, let's say, read your dialogues at the same time. So what we've added in the software is the ability to render the dialogue on the bitmaps. So I have a new captions tab here in my export to bitmap, where I can select which dialogue to export to render on my images. I can select the font, the size, what's the color of my text, and if I want to have a box drawn behind, and the position of that text. And now I'll just export just that one scene, current scene, okay. And now in the exported images, I will have my dialogue. It's Quincy, and he's headed for the big sky falls. He has a really big voice for a kid. So now when you're pitching your storyboard and going through your images, you can actually see the dialogue as you're pitching it and read it and act it out. Hopefully you act it out better than I do, but anyway, the captions can also be rendered when you're exporting to other formats like QuickTime movies. So if you want to have subtitles when exporting QuickTime movies, you also have the options to do that there. But also when you're exporting to XML or AF using the export project here, you also have the captions tab to add the captions. One thing that I forgot to show you on the export to bitmap is we have added a new format, and it's the PNG format. So we didn't have the ability to export as PNG files using the bitmap export. Now when you're exporting to bitmap, you have this format available. And when I'm exporting to project, I also have the expand render area here. So if I'm exporting my XML or exporting my AAF, this option is also available here. And I also have the PNG format right there. Now in the other format export, so when I'm exporting a PDF, we've added the ability to rectify the camera, rectify static camera. What is that? So I have under my PDF profile, I had the ability to rectify the camera. This option already existed in the bitmap export, but now it's available when exporting a PDF. I've already exported two examples here. So when you have a camera rotation, so it's just a static camera that's rotated, and you export to PDF, traditionally what it does is it kind of renders your drawing with the perspective that you see from the stage view, and it draws your camera frame rotated on the panel, and you have a lot of wasted space around it. Now we don't do that anymore. We have the option to rectify static camera, rotated camera. So instead of rendering the drawing on rotated with the camera rotated on it and losing a lot of space, we render the panel through the camera so that you see the rotation directly on your panel, so you don't lose space around your drawing anymore. And now let's move on to the timeline and editing features. So before I go, actually, let's just see, is there any questions on any things I've showed so far?
Yeah, so there's a few questions actually. So Matthew Taylor, who is a good friend of Toon Boom, works in live action. So you're a little bit familiar with him, and he's been asking basically, how do we, how do we play with the software? What new additions are there for people who work in the live action field? And one question specifically is, will Storyboard Pro ever have a function for numbering that is more akin to live action layout? That is the number next to the frames and shots, etc.
Actually, that's a very good question, and I think that we would need to talk a little bit further about that and see exactly what type of numbering would be good for live action. So, but yeah, specifically for live action, I mean, everything that I'm showing so far can be used for when you're drawing for live action. It's not specific to a drawing style. It can be used for 2D animation or for 3D animation. It really doesn't matter.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? Peter wants to know a little bit more about flipping scenes. Lettering does not flip correctly. Is that possible? Can you maybe just go into that feature a little bit more?
Yeah,
a few questions.
For sure. If I'm looking at this drawing here, I have some text here, settle, and the text is inside my drawing. So if I'm flipping my drawings, I'm also flipping the text. So it will flip the drawing, it will flip the camera, but it cannot recognize the text and not flip the text. And if it would not flip the text, then the text would not fit with the drawing anymore. So that's the only thing you need to to modify after that. Is if you've written something, you will need to make sure that it's still readable, or read it with a mirror in front of your screen now.
That's cool. Devin has a cool question too. Can you share groups just like you can share drawings?
You can share drawings inside groups, but not the group specifically. So you can actually share multiple drawings inside a group, but not the group specifically.
Cool. Oscar wants to know, was the dialogue imported from the script?
Yes. So that's something that's not new in this version. That's been in Storyboard Pro for a long time. When you're working with a script, you have the ability to import the script inside the storyboard, either from the storyboard view here. So you can copy and paste your script from a software to Storyboard Pro, or you can actually import a TXT file or RTF file or a final draft script. The other thing you can do is also you can create your project based on a final draft script. So we've got a file new from final draft script command. And when I open the final draft script using this command, it will recognize all the elements inside the script. So the dialogues, the character names, the actions, the scene cuts and stuff like that. And it will create all the panels, populating all the panels with the proper dialogue and the proper action notes. So it gives you a base to work on when you're, instead of having to create everything and copy and paste manually the text to every panel, it will already populate those. And so for sure, sometimes you might need to add a couple of panels for a line of dialogue or for an action, but it really is helpful to create a base from which you can work for. And now I'm moving along to the editing part of the software. So I'm in the timeline here. One feature that we've added that was a really popular demand is the ability to add markers. So if I want to mark a specific frame, a specific time code inside my timeline, I can place my playhead somewhere, right-click in the ruler part here, and add a marker. I also have this inside the storyboard menu, markers, add markers. And I've previously added a shortcut to that command, M, so I can actually do that also while playing back. If I go at the end of my project here, unfortunately, you won't be able to hear the song. I don't think so, even if I put my volume very, very high. But when I'm playing back, you can actually press the marker, the M key, to add markers, and I follow the beat of the song, of the track. I don't know if you could hear the track. Yeah, a little bit. So I can add markers to mark a specific beat inside a song, if I have a dance sequence that I need to draw, or if there's a specific piece of dialogue, or if there's a specific sound effect and I want to time a drawing with that, I can add a marker inside my timeline. I can use commands to go from and to markers. So I've added some shortcuts to that. Alt dot and Alt comma allows me to go from one marker to the other. I can select and move markers around after they've been added. And I can also modify a marker after it's been added. So I can, by double clicking it, I can add duration to a marker. Let's say 1 second. I can change the color of the marker, and I can add a note. This is, oh, I can't type. This is a marker note. Click OK, and now you can see that my marker has a duration. And if I leave my mouse over it, you'll see the time in my project where the marker is. You'll see the duration, 1 second, and you'll also see the note. This is a marker, so you can use that also to put some notes into your Storyboard Pro if you want, your storyboard if you want. And something that ties into this ability to add markers now is you also have the ability to play back farther than the last panel that you have. So for example, I have a sound here that goes past the last panel, and if I play this back, it will go beyond the last panel. So if I have something I want to mark in my song, my soundtrack, I can actually play it back farther and add markers as it plays back. And this is enabled from the play menu, and it's called include audio in playback range. I think it's enabled by default. Now, another nice feature that we have inside the software for editing is the ability to solo a track, an audio track. So when you're working with audio and you want to isolate and hear just one track, maybe it's the dialogue track, you don't want to hear the music and all the sound effects. Usually you would need to mute all the other tracks, but that's a little bit annoying, because if you have some tracks that you want to mute and some tracks that you don't want to mute, and you have to mute everything except one, and then you don't remember what it was and you have to reset them. So we have solo mode now. It's the next button just next to the little speaker, and when that button is pressed and I do a playback and I have some sound, I will only hear that one track. I won't hear other tracks. And I can actually solo multiple tracks together if I want to, not just one. And once I uncheck all the tracks, the solo mode on all the tracks, I will hear everything again. This is not saved in your project. This is not persistent data. It's really just a tool that you can use while you're working interactively inside the software. And another thing that we've improved in regards to the sound is the way we display low volume sound. So this sound here is really, really low volume. And in the previous version, you wouldn't be able to see any waveform for that. You would just see a flat line. Now in this new version, we use a logarithmic function to display the waveforms instead of a linear function, so that the low volume sound will display better inside the software. And speaking of volume, when you add volume keyframes, so I have the volume keyframes enabled, show volume here, and I can add some keyframes by pressing the Alt key. If I at one point decide to split my sound, let's say here, Storyboard Pro will preserve the keys that are outside of the visible range, so that you actually keep the volume that you've preset in your sound clips. In the past, you would lose them, the ones that were outside, and you would lose the volume that you've set on the clip. And another neat feature with the sound is now you can actually copy and paste sound on multiple tracks. So for those of you that are doing animatics and sound editing inside Storyboard Pro, already know that. You can select multiple sounds on multiple tracks. You can move them around, but you can't copy and paste them on multiple tracks at once. But now it's possible. So if I select multiple sounds, I press Command C or copy, Control C, I go somewhere else, I select a track, and I pressed Control V, Command V, it will paste these sound on the multiple soundtracks in the same way they were set up, laid out before I did that. So that's another thing that makes your work a lot faster when you're doing the animatic inside the Storyboard Pro. We've also allowed you to zoom out a lot further than you could in the past. So if you have a project that's 20 minutes or even an hour, no matter how long your project is, the zoom will automatically adjust, the zoom level will automatically adjust to the length of your project. So the longer your project is, the farther you'll be able to zoom out. So this allows you to navigate really quickly from one end to the other of your project. And I'm using the 1 and the 2 key to zoom in and zoom out, but I could be also using just the zoom slider here. Now, another thing we've improved in this version of the software, or actually added, is the support of the AAF format. We already had the ability to export to AAF for working with Avid using the export EDL, AF, and XML command, but that would export QuickTime movies that you would be stuck with once you're in your editing software. You could not rework your camera moves. So we have the other export feature that's called the export project, which can be used to export an XML that will be used in Final Cut Pro or Premiere. And now we've added the ability to export to an AAF as well. So what this will do, it will render one image for each panel inside of your project. It will frame that image according to the camera that you have on that panel or on the whole scene using that new option here. And then it will place and it will time all of these panels inside the AAF, but also time all the sound inside the AAF. So you can import your AAF inside the Avid Media Creator, Media Composer, sorry, and work on your refining your animatic inside the editing software. And you will also be able to conform back changes like it was possible to do with the XML export. Conform back changes from Avid by exporting an AF out of Avid and importing this back into Storyboard Pro. As with the export XML, this will support reordering your panels, changing the duration of the panels. Also, if you import new sounds, if you modify the camera, all of that stuff will be conformed back to your project. Just keep in mind that you can only do that on one track inside your editing software, as Storyboard Pro only has one video track inside the software. Another thing we've changed, and that's the ability to set what is the default caption that you want to use, the default font for the captions you want to use when you create a project. So under the Captions tab menu here, I have Caption Default Format. This opens a little dialog where I can select the font that I want to use and the size that I want to use. And from then on, any new panel I add will use this new font and size for all the panels. And this is saved in your preferences. So any new project that I create will use that font. So whatever font you want to use, you can now set this as a default inside Storyboard Pro. And another thing that we've changed inside the software is on Windows, is we've removed the dependency on QuickTime inside Storyboard Pro. So if you're using a Windows computer and you don't want to install QuickTime, you will now be able to continue working with Storyboard Pro and importing sounds. We will be using the Media Foundation to import the sounds instead of QuickTime. But also to export movies, instead of exporting QuickTime movies on Windows, you'll be able to export WMVs or Windows Media Videos. So if you don't want to have QuickTime, you have the ability on Windows to import sounds and to export movies. But if you do install QuickTime, Storyboard Pro still supports it. So you will still be able to export QuickTime on Windows. This does not affect the Mac version at all, as QuickTime is built inside the OS on Mac. That's pretty much it for all the new features I wanted to show you. Is there any questions on anything I showed you so far?
So there's lots of questions, but lots of great feedback as well. So a lot of people are congratulating you guys on creating the markers. That feature seems to be quite popular in terms of feedback. So congratulations.
Great, thanks.
So let's talk about camera transitions. Is there a way to fade up or fade out? Charles is asking.
To fade up or fade out. You can add transitions inside the software. So if you add a camera movement in the scene and you do a cross dissolve to the next scene, you'll be able to have your camera move with your transition. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that's what you can do inside the software.
Yeah, I think that covers the question a little bit.
Yeah, if I have two scenes here and I select the two scenes, I can just add a transition. I can select the type of transition I want, a dissolve, edge wipe, clock wipe, slide, and this will be rendered once you render your QuickTime or your Windows Movie video.
Cool. If there was a PDF layout manipulation, moving frames off center, etc., does it allow for field notes next to the frames? So basically, can you put notes in there, and then can you just show us the process?
Putting notes inside the PDF.
Yep.
Well, the one thing you can do is you can use the one of the captions that you have here to type some notes for the PDF. And you can, if you don't have all the captions that you want, you can actually add additional captions. Notes for PDF. And that will be exported in the PDF that you export out of Storyboard Pro. When you're exporting a PDF and you go to edit your profile, you can actually select which caption you're exporting. So if you just want to see the dialogue, the notes, and the notes for PDF, you can actually just render those to PDF. You don't have to see everything inside from your project.
So here's more of a feature request from Belinda. She's asking, in editing and export, we would like to be able to do overlapping timeline when doing wipes in storyboarding. It's a feature that a client of theirs is asking for. Can you maybe just talk about that a little bit?
Overlapping timeline. So you mean having multiple video tracks inside the software?
Yeah.
Well, actually, one thing that we've done, we still have just one video track inside the software. And when I have a transition like this, you see that the panel here stops here, but it actually goes all the way here, and this panel goes all the way here. And when I resize my transition, this automatically resizes the panels that are affected by this transition. So you can have an overlap between those two panels. And actually, one thing that we fixed is as well is the way the sound syncs to the transition. So if you have a sound under a transition, it will properly follow the transition around. So for example, you have transition, it's fading out, cross dissolving to the other scene, and your sound needs to start in the middle of your transition. It will now follow your transition around when you resize the transition, resize the panel.
Cool. Andrew's wondering about 3D improvements. So he's asking, any changes, updates to the 3D aspects of the software?
Yeah, so we did a lot of work in the back end of the software that's not really visible to the user. And for that reason, this will bring me to a subject that I want to touch base on just before leaving, which is compatibility with the previous version of the software. So we've replaced what we had before, the 3D schematic view, by a 3D graph view. And we've replaced the way we treat objects inside the 3D model. And we're making a transition to a different different way of working with the subnodes or the sub-objects in the 3D objects to be able to do more with 3D objects in a future version of the software. So we're kind of laying out the groundwork for the future. So if I go here and I import a 3D model inside, and I look at the 3D graph here, you'll see that I have, instead of having a schematic like I used to, I have kind of a tree view, which I can use to select the different parts of the model, like this. And one thing that's new or different is that I have the ability to disable a sub-object, like I had in the past, but also the ability to hide a sub-object. So this hides the object from the model, but it doesn't hide the child as well. So that's mainly the biggest change that we've made in the software. It's really the way we traverse the tree and the way we manipulate the tree, so that we will be able to do more eventually with that new 3D engine.
Cool.
So by doing so, by modifying this, it also makes a project that you create inside Storyboard Pro 5.5 that use 3D models incompatible with previous versions. So the compatibility of our software is always backwards compatible, which means that if you do something in an older version, version 5, version 5.1, version 4.2, or even version 2, and you open it in 5.5, this works. You can always go from old version to new version. But if you take something that you've created in a new version and you try to open it in an older version, it will not work properly if you have 3D models. So if you have 3D models and you've manipulated the individual pieces of your model and you try to open this in an older version of the software won't let you, because it's not able to recognize the new way we treat the 3D models. However, what we've done is we've released a 5.1.1 version of Storyboard Pro, which supports that format. So it will allow you to take something in 5.5 and open it in the 5.1.1. Though for sure, any new feature that you use inside Storyboard Pro 5.5 will not be able to be understood by the previous version. For example, if I'm using guides, I won't be able to see and use the guides inside the previous version, but I will still be able to open the project. I hope that makes sense.
That does. So one more question regarding pegs. Are there some updates about the peg movements? Add keyframes to movements on an element.
No, this is pretty much the same it was in version 5.1. We don't call them pegs inside Storyboard, but that's that's what they are internally, I guess, when you go to Harmony. So it's still the same. You can add as many keys as you want on an individual layers by animating the layer right there. But no, there's no modification to that part.
So there's a bit of a glitch that someone is asking about. One problem I have with the current storyboard is that sometimes I pick a color and draw, and then if I delete something on the drawing area, Storyboard will delete the last watch I clicked. Has that glitch been addressed?
So like this. So one thing that you have to be aware of Storyboard Pro is that the shortcuts are sensitive to the focus area you have. So when I move from one view to another, so let's say I'm in the stage view here, I have a red frame in the stage view, which means that shortcuts like zooming in, zooming out, pressing the spacebar to pan will affect this view. If I go down to the timeline, I see the red box is in the timeline now. So if I zoom in and zoom out, this affects this view now. And if I press and hold the spacebar, this will affect this view. And it's the same thing with the color view. If I select a color here, the red frame is around that view. And if I move my mouse over to the drawing area and I want to start drawing, the focus is still there. And if I press delete, I'm deleting a color. As long as I don't click inside this view, the focus is still on the color view. But once I click here, the focus is here. So I wonder if this is not what this person is experiencing as a problem with deleting. If this is not related to where the focus is, I encourage this person to contact us, and we can look at this at this together and see if it's really what is causing that, because I've never heard that one before. It's the first time I hear it.
So we welcome all questions or glitches or software recommendations to be emailed to us at webinars@toonboom.com or directly to Marc-André as well. Just so we touch base on this one more time, this webinar is being recorded and it will be live on our website within a few days. So just in case you missed anything or want to review something, we can help you out with that by posting the webinar on our website. There's also a few places that you can go to on our website. So you can go to our Learn portal, and our Learn portal is a really great feature that we launched late last year. So it's called learn.toonboom.com, and on this site you can basically take a journey and learn really the nuts and bolts of the technology, and really master your craft, and really be part of a community that will be able to answer any questions you have. So, sadly, we're not going to be able to answer all the questions that you guys had today. But you can email us at webinar@toonboom.com, and we'll be able to help you out for sure. And you can always go to our Learn portal. Marc-André is very active on our forums as well, so you can always talk to us on our forums and ask us any questions there, or start a thread regarding Storyboard Pro. So please, we invite you to send us your emails, your questions, your feedback, and any kind of information you may have. You guys are great. Marc-André, do you have anything else to add?
No, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, for listening to me babble for about an hour the new features in Storyboard Pro. And really, I really encourage you guys to give us feedback, either directly to me or using webinar@toonboom.com. You know, the more feedback we get from you guys, the better we can make the software. So yes, don't hesitate to let us know if you have any questions, any feature requests, or are experiencing any problems with the software.
That's great. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or watch any of our videos on YouTube as well. And you can always contact us through multiple channels. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope this was really helpful.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.